We're good, Nikki.
We're good? Okay. Welcome. I have 6:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. For those that are able, if you wouldn't mind rising for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we do have a quorum, even though Mr. Schultz is not with us, so I will gavel us in and call the meeting to order. First business, we are going to elect new officers tonight, and so I actually believe I need a motion to assign a temporary chairperson to conduct the meeting until that point. So if I could ask my colleagues for a motion, please.
I move that we appoint Mrs. Wilden as the temporary chair.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Second. Can we vote on me as a temporary chair, please? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Dr. Roberts.
Thank you. I'm going to jump back then to our mission, vision, and core values, Mrs. Wilden, before we progress with the rest of the meeting. So just a reminder to all that the vision for our school corporation is to be the choice to learn, work, and play. Our mission is we develop expert learners by partnering with our community to invest in people. And the 6 core beliefs that we work to follow: we all can rise to the challenge of high expectations. Learning is most effective when we have choice, flexibility, and see relevance. We thrive when our physical, social, and psychological needs are met. Our community and school district are stronger when we partner with one another. We flourish because of the diversity and variability in our community. Our democracy and democratic institutions are strengthened by civic-minded citizens. And Mrs. Wilden, we have done this slide, so public comments is next. And just for all, we moved public comments. It doesn't show up on the agenda, but after some conversation, we moved it to the beginning because technically by statute, public comments are supposed to be allowed before any vote is taken. And we are voting on officers this evening. And so I don't know if that's exactly what the legislature meant, but we are just making sure to follow literally state statute. So at this time, I'll turn it back over to you, Mrs. Wilden, in terms of managing any public comments.
There are no public comments. So we'll move on.
Maybe to ask, I don't know, Mike, if this would be appropriate, just because kind of a different thing, and we typically don't have that. If there is anybody who would like to make a comment in regards to anything and did not sign in, given the movement of this to the beginning, right before the vote for officers, we could allow that, I think, to happen at this point.
Anybody? Okay, we will move on. So now we will move to election of officers. So the way this works is a nomination for an officer does not require a second. So if anyone would like to nominate an officer, we'll accept those now. We will vote accordingly.
I would like to nominate Mrs. Wilden for president in 2024.
Thank you.
Do we do them separately, or do we?
We were going to do them. We can do them separately. So we'll do them separately. Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Are there any other nominations for school board president? Okay, we will go ahead and vote. All those in favor of myself as continuing in president in 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Nomination for vice president.
I make a motion that we nominate Richard as the vice president.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. I have a nomination for Mr. Stenner. Any other nominations for vice president? Okay, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of Mr. Stenner as vice president in 2024, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And nomination for secretary.
I would like to nominate Todd Grimes to be secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen. Any other nominations? Secretary, okay. All those in favor of Mr. Grimes continuing as secretary in 2024, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. School board member reports. Mr. Nellen,
I do not have a report.
Okay. Mr. Grimes?
Yes, just a couple quick things. From the school foundation, the executive director, Mrs. Cunningham, would like me to pass on to students and parents that may be out there listening that there are about 20 student scholarships and that the application procedure is now open with a deadline of March 1st. Again, that's for student scholarships, BCSC, stars.org, and then also to any teachers out there that may be listening that teaching awards will be coming up soon, and applications and nominations again will be coming up soon, so keep an eye on your email. And then quickly, for a legislative standpoint, through the School Boards Association, today the short session began today, just got underway. I've heard that their goal is to be done by March 8. They have a deadline of actually March 14, and the goal is to finish a week early. And from the School Board Association's perspective, there's a prediction of about 150 K through 12 bills to be proposed. And again, kind of following that same prediction, about 20 or so of those, of the 150 bills regarding K through 12 education will possibly become law. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Mr. Stannard, do you have any committee updates? Mr. Major?
Yeah, so from the redevelopment commission standpoint, we had a meeting, but there was really nothing new from the last couple of meetings I've reported. We did have a health trust meeting on Friday last week. We kind of did a year-end review. We added to our reserves. Financials are strong, and it looks like we're trying to get a trip to the clinic that's going to be at Nexus Park. We're hoping, I think it was opening that, I think February, March time frame. So we're getting really close with that. And we had a really good meeting. I think we're going to hopefully, if everything goes right, be very well prepared earlier this year than years in the past, similar to last year, with our recommendations. So hopefully we can do a good job trying to keep our costs low.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Mr. Bryant, do you have any updates? No? Okay, and then just for the benefit of the folks here, committee assignments will take place in the next meeting on January 22nd, so you have to have an executive committee appointed to help that process of assignments, et cetera. So those will be here for discussion on the 22nd, I believe. Okay. Cabinet reports. Dr. Phillips.
Do you have a clicker, Dr. Phillips? You just want me to move it ahead for you?
No, but I'll be pretty quick.
Okay.
If you don't mind clicking for us.
It's okay.
Appreciate it.
I'll do it.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the annual required Board of Finance report we're supposed to do before the end of this month. And I'll be relatively brief. It was all good news pretty much from an investment standpoint in 2023 with interest rates where they were. Obviously better than they had been in the recent past. Two of the things that we're required to do is just review our investment policy and reappoint the Board of Finance officers, which in BCSC have always been the board president and the board secretary. And then our investment policy, board policy 6144, allows us to invest corporation dollars for up to 2 years in treasuries, bank CDs, and then money market accounts. We invested, most of our money sits in the First Financial Bank and goes into sweep accounts into a money market account every evening. And during this year, the rate did not change during the course of the year. It was just under 4% for the entirety of 2023, and that netted us just under $1.1 million just from the money market sweep account during the course of 2023. We also purchased treasuries and multiple treasuries. We were active as rates were attractive. We were active in the market in 2023 and purchased and matured 5 different treasuries during the course of that time. One of those, the extracurricular account treasury, was actually purchased in 2022, but matured in March of 2023. So the total interest earned, including that little bit of time frame in 2022 with the extracurricular account one, Treasury netted us just under $2 million in interest earned during this last year. This slide shows you some history, and you can see why over $3 million in interest earned is significant for us. The highest, in the last 13, 14 years there was just about 1.3 million. And so significant improvement in the market if you're investing. The next slide, this is, actually, Dr. Roberts, if you don't mind going back to that. Does anyone have any questions on just the investments? Okay. The next slide is also something the legislature introduced a few years ago. The Distressed Unit Appeals Board, abbreviated, is called DUAB. And the state statute requires that we cover this during the Board of Finance report. The DUAB indicators are available at that link. You can just Google DUAB and it will be the first hit that comes up. But essentially, they put in some metrics into place to track schools and be able to predict whether or not schools were going to or predicted to run into any financial trouble in the near future. It was a reaction to some specific communities that did have some school districts run into some financial issues. The problem with the indicators is that they're very much lagging. If you go on there now, you'll see 2022's data still, and so it takes a long time before there's any meaningful data to see on the website. It's also difficult to capture how complex the different pieces and parts of school finance are. And just so that you know, the DUAB board does contact school districts well before they enter if they're expected to have some trouble, and then work with you for a long period of time before any district is ever labeled as a distressed unit. So we would tell you if we were ever in that situation, but looking at the indicators and obviously our financial situation, there's no concerns right now for BCSC.
Do you wish for me to hit that link or?
No.
Only
no,
if, okay.
No. We could go down a wormhole if we did that.
Okay.
This is the next item. The next item on the agenda for cabinet reports from me is every semester we share with you our extracurricular account balances. That's also a statutory requirement. Since in 2022 and 3, it was the first time we've ever, as a district, invested our ECA extracurricular account monies. So the balances of the first two columns there, July 1, 2023, and the investment balances, you add those two up. In the end, the total gain during the fall semester for schools was just over $200,000, which is usually what happens in the fall is when schools are doing their fundraisers and bringing in money, and the spring is when the money goes out. So we would expect during this semester the balances to drop just a little bit. Any questions on the extracurricular account balances? And then the last one, I have 3. The 2024 BCSC's portion of the property tax rate was just approved by the DLGF last week. And so we put this slide in here for you. And you can see we tracked down again just a hair. We're since the operating referendum was passed in 2020, affecting the rate in 21, each year for the last 4 years, then our rate has ticked down just a tad, and the same thing again in 2024. We won't know what the average tax rate is for the state for a couple of months. And then the next slide should look familiar to, as we've been updating this one since 2019, since we started conversations about the operating referendum. And you can see when the operating referendum passed in 2020, go into 21 there, we told taxpayers when we ran that campaign that we would land on a tax rate right around $1.01 and keep it there, and we have been tracked downward just a tad each year since then. We also track 4 different groups to compare ourselves to. One is the state average of the school portion of the property tax rate, And then the other 3 are districts that are around us geographically, are similar to us from a budget standpoint and similar to us from an assessed value standpoint. And so it captures districts that are urban, rural, most of them about 10 to 15,000 students in in enrollment, so similar to us in many ways. And in each case, we continue to remain lesser than each of those cohort groups that we compare ourselves to. And I'll update this probably in the spring when all that data is available. Any questions on the 24 property tax rate?
Just out of curiosity, Dr. Phillips, when comparing BCSC to those with a similar budget, about how many corporations might that be?
In each of these cases, I just took the 5 districts just above us when sorted by budget and the 5 districts just below us. And so I just took those 10 districts. In some cases, the districts are repeated in those 2 cohort groups, the assessed value group and the budget group, but I think it's only 3 that are the same. The rest of them are different.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Stinner, did you have a question as well?
Thanks. I was going to ask on the short-term experience that we've had investing extracurricular funds, the interest earned is passed back to the extracurricular funds on a pro rata basis based on what they
Exactly.
participated. All right.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Now?
I don't know if I'm missing something on the chart, but at the end of the orange and the aqua, it looks like $1.05 is higher than $1.07.
Thank you. I will correct that.
Okay,
Math teachers. Goodness.
good observation.
Yeah, I wonder how long that's been that way. Thanks, Mr. Nally. You can mark me off for that.
They're both above us. That's the important part.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, I can maybe keep going on, Mrs. Wilden. So under cabinet reports, we also had Neola policy revision recommendations. I was not ready to have you approve this. You spent a lot of time working on a couple of policies prior to our winter break and approved 2 of those on December the 8th, I believe was our last meeting, whatever that date was before winter break. And so put these in a format for you to hopefully understand and read better. So took some time to work back through those policies and just make sure they are easily understood by you. So in your packet, you can easily see, I hope, what is being changed, what's being recommended, and so forth. So this is just a reminder of the policies that we still have that were recommended to us to update based upon statutory language changes from last legislative session. Mr. Grimes referenced this legislative session and probably another 20 to 25 bills that might pass that will impact education. And after that, whatever that number is, we'll get some more recommendations, but still catching up here a little bit from last year. So we have policy 1521 about personal background checks, references mandatory reporting. So that was SEA 342 from a year ago, just trying to bring our language up to par there. Policy 2221 is mandatory curriculum, again revised. This one gets into the state statute piece from HEA 1608 about not being able or allowed to provide instruction to a student in pre-kindergarten through grade 3 on human sexuality. Policy 2414 also gets into that same topic from HEA 1608, reproductive health and family planning and human sexuality. Policy 2416 gets into student privacy and parental access to information. This hits the HEA 1608 about parent notification regarding identification of students when they're looking to change names or change gender or change pronouns from a gender standpoint. And then also including information about the evaluation surveys, personal analyses that we might put into a place. That's HEA 1447. With that one, it just specifies that the statute specifies we have to post the survey online and go through a process of getting permission to administer those instruments. 2510, adoption of curricular materials. You did library materials at the last one. This one basically just gets into the prohibiting the charges because now we do not have charges for curricular materials, textbook adoption, those kinds of things. The corporation pays for that out of dollars received from the state of Indiana. Adjunct teachers, if we would choose to go that route, this has the same language from SEA 342 about criminal history checks, offenses that impact employment, and so forth. 3121 is the same thing from SEA 342. 3220.01 teacher appreciation grants. We adopted one that kind of added this language not too long ago prior to receiving the grants, but we need to make another tweak to that. That's out of HEA 1001, the budget bill, just allowing us to provide money to teachers who might serve as mentors to other teachers who have less than 2 years of service. And then 4121 is that same, and I've reminded you of this before, so I'll remind you again though, that sometimes we'll have something that affects all employee groups, and we have 3 chapters basically under our policies of employee groups: administrators, staff that's covered under the collective bargaining agreement, and then staff who aren't. And so that makes up those 3 chapters, and this here is again that SCA 342. 9700 is relations with special interest groups, and this just gets into, again, some things about what we have to do with the administration of personal analyses, evaluations, or surveys to students. So some duplication in policies in some cases, but that is the list of them. Again, if you have any questions with what you have, I'll try to take those now, or just reach back out to me, and perhaps we can have these ready to go. If you think we need to have another work session, which has worked well, I think, for you as a board, us as a school corporation, then we could schedule that too. But that's the list of those that are still outstanding for us.
Any discussion or questions from the team?
I've just got one quick comment, and I would just like to say thank you for the preparation of those in our board packet this time. Yep. The way they were presented was much easier to sift through and make sense of than sometimes in the past, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for that. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to read with as we go through the electronic piece with Neola and try to replicate that and get it out to you. So just reformatted it so maybe it was easier to read and understand. Okay.
All right, Dr. Phillips.
Yeah.
Don't look so surprised. You're up.
I apologize. These are just requests for approvals to reappoint myself as the corporation treasurer, Paula Betros as the deputy treasurer, and then authorize us to continue to invest funds on behalf of the district, and then also the bonds that insure both the treasurer, deputy treasurer, and then basically each of the school extracurricular treasurers, and then essentially there's an umbrella that covers anyone in the district that handles cash. As a group.
Yeah, and in the packet that you would have had the list of those positions that have bonds and how much they were bonded. And so yeah, we would recommend, Mrs. Wilden, that we take a motion for each of those items, A through D, under number 4.
I have a motion from the team.
I move that we approve number 4, letters A through D, as presented by Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. Thank you, Mr. Nellen. All those in favor of approving number 4, items A through D, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Okay, and we have establishment of board meetings, remuneration and required notices listed there. So I'm not going to even try to say that word again. Established board remuneration is provided by law. $2,000 annually per diem, $112, $62 per meeting of a different group, which an appointed liaison is present. Designated newspapers are qualified publications in which public required notices. I think the Republic is our partner for that. And then we set school board meeting dates January 23rd to July 31st, 2025. Of course, if we do need to make any changes to those, we always give notice if something comes up that requires those to move.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Wilden. Maybe before making a motion to vote on those, I would just state that by policy, our wording is per annum and per diem, and so that's why I've called those out specifically here. just with the number of meetings and so forth, we're having to work through some just challenging stuff. We need to make sure we define regular meeting, because by just terminology, regular session is like right now. But then we have executive session, we have strategic planning session, we have work sessions, and if we want to include those all as regular meetings of the board, then we just need to make sure we have that captured in our minutes. And then the $62 per meeting, I think that language was pretty clear in the resolution that we have, or in the recommendation that was in your packet about if you're appointed to a different group within the community to serve as the board's liaison and you have that meeting, that's $62. But per diem means per day. And so if we have 3 meetings, public work session, executive session, and a regular session, is that the $112 or we just need to be clear on that, so as we check claims and work through that reimbursement process, we're clear on that, because we have had evenings where we've had 3 meetings, but per diem is per day, so we have just some interesting language. I don't know, Mike, if there's any additional clarification there that we need, but our policy says per diem, and that's what we're trying to just work through here.
And the state law references per diem.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Understood. So you're recommending we at least look at the policy as a team and make sure we
Yeah, so we follow
understanding.
policy, right. So just for our minutes after this vote is a regular meeting, a meeting of this board, work session, strategic planning session, executive session, regular session, the word regular being used now, or is it responding to, those are regular meetings and those other meetings are all part of that other group. But when I talked with Mike about this, if we have 3 meetings in an evening and it's per day, then really it's saying, even grouping those together, that's basically $112, not 112 times 3.
Or 62 times 3.
Right.
I understand. Okay.
It's just a per diem word that, yeah, as we just need to get some clarification and be consistent for everybody from the reimbursement standpoint.
And we need to do that now, or that's something we need to discuss later?
You're adopting policy this evening, so I would do it today.
Okay.
And the follow-up question is, you may have a day where you have a meeting, but no regular meeting that day.
Right.
So is that intended to fall under the 112? You may have a strategic planning on a day, but not have a true regular.
Oh, I understand.
The strategic planning session as an example. That's one meeting, nothing else is happening before it or after it, and does that mean regular for us? We just have not defined that and need to put it in front of.
So Mike, for today, we could move forward with it as is written, right? Per year, per
The way
day,
it says.
and then have further discussion and change this anytime, right? I'm just trying to think about the best way to get through this, because
Yeah.
otherwise we really probably should sit and study this, think about it, and have a conversation around it, because all meetings aren't equal, right? I mean, we have a 10-minute discussion about hiring someone. That's different than sitting here for 3 or 4 hours. So, or a strategy session that might be 3 or 4 hours. So I think you could probably move some stuff around up or down depending on how you're spending your time.
You are required to adopt a policy at this point. I believe you could go back and revise it if needed. That would be the piece that I would have to check on though. But I would expect that you would. Have to adopt a policy or should adopt a policy.
Yeah, maybe, Mike, in regards to adopting the policy as stated, as Jason indicated, and then just clarifying the definition versus changing the policy. It would just be a definition clarification in our minutes that could probably clean that up at another date.
Okay.
Could I ask a question here? I don't necessarily understand all the designation of the lingo, but if we changed regular meeting to BCSC school board meeting, whether it's an executive session or a strategic plan, those are all BCSC school board meetings? Is that correct? I mean, if so, I mean, if we have 2 or 3 in one day, it's per diem, so you're only paid for one of those. And I think it would be very unusual that we would have one of those very short meetings on a different day from our regular school board meeting. Is that?
Yeah, I think I understand where Mr. Nellen is at. So one perspective is that if we often have meetings in sequence, some of them the public can attend, some of them they can't for various reasons. But if they're in sequence, all on the same day, we would call that 112 to capture all of it combined. If there are meetings on different days, you could claim the 112. If it is on a different day, like next Tuesday, for example, we will have an executive session. But if it's in one day, it's $112 for the entire day. Is that what you're?
Yeah, and I'm saying if we,
Fine.
instead of regular meeting, if we just said BCSC school board meeting, that would cover, I would think that would cover any of those. With still the stipulation that if there's multiple in one day, it's a per diem thing.
Well, what Mr. Nellen is saying does make sense in that the hangup has been the terminology of regular meeting and how we classify meetings with those other terms. If it was changed to something like school board meeting and where each of yours are asked to be there, may or may not be able to, but strategic planning session, public work session, executive session, and then a regular session, that could apply.
You had a different.
What I've assumed all along, or my take on it, has been a regular meeting being our scheduled 6:30 school board meeting. That's it. No executive session, public work session. I've worked under the assumption those fall under the meeting of a different group, and regular meeting only being meetings as this one now.
I actually never understood how they fit, so I turn in the meetings and don't put any cost down because somebody else could figure that out. But I don't disagree with you.
I guess my opinion is we all have slightly different understanding of what these mean. For tonight, it might be easiest to move this forward and then continue discussion so that we all can put a definition next to these. Because you could say meetings of the board, and it includes executive session, strategic session, regular school board meeting like now, meetings of the board, regardless how many per day, you get $1 amount per day, right? I mean, there's ways you can write it out in much more official terms, but.
Okay, so in slightly different words, I think you both said instead of regular meeting, BCSC school board meeting could replace the word regular, and someone could make a motion to at least change that on what we vote today. And then we can, throughout our other conversations, clarify with one another how we're interpreting that. Is maybe a summary of your points. Okay, so would it?
That potentially being the case, then should we pull A out for number 5 and vote on separately than B and C?
Or can we just vote on it all, making an amendment to letter A?
So can I make a motion that we approve number 5, items A through C, with the change in part A2, change regular to BCSC school board?
I think that's a motion. I'm seeing
Second.
nodding from I heard a second.
And
Mike's.
before you call for a vote, just making sure that we'll be approving the amendment first, or approving all of this as A through C with exactly that change.
We approved the amendment first to be in, I think last time that's how we got up.
I know, I just made a
upside down.
motion that contradicted my own request.
You did, but
Yes,
how about you redo that motion,
Yes,
Mr. Nellen?
yes.
Thank
Just
you.
5A only.
Okay. So
Real quick, do we have to vote on that motion? Or can he amend his motion?
I think we have to have a motion to approve this in
'Cause
second, and then the other comes
It's been
into
seconded by
discussion.
Pat. So I think we have to vote on it, right?
So can I make a motion to amend before we have a motion to adopt this? Is that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let me change my motion. I withdraw the other one. So I would move that we amend number 5, item A2, and strike the word regular and replace it with BCSC School Board.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant, again. Okay, we are going to vote on whether we amend 5A2 from regular meeting to BCSC School Board. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Okay, so now we've amended.
Now I make the motion that we approve number 5, items A through C as written and amended.
Thank you, Mr. Nallen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Okay, all those in favor of approving 5A through C as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. That is helpful. Again, just with the wording that we had, your review of that and making an amendment to that is helpful. Thank you.
Ms. Wheeldon, Dr. Roberts, if we could, if there's any possibility before we circle back to how we're going to do this, that we might check with the State Board of Accounts and see if they have any opinion, maybe any history with this kind of per diem. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr.
Good
Stenner.
idea, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Okay. That would take us into some other recommendations. And Mr. McIver, I think that we have had some public disclosures of conflict of interest, and those have been reviewed, I believe.
So they were included in your board packet. In most of the cases, I don't think they technically qualify as conflict of interest under the statute, but out of caution and transparency, the administrators and board members have generally submitted those, and it would be appropriate for the board to have a motion to accept them, motion and a second, vote to accept them, just so they're part of the record.
Thank you, Mike. Do I have a motion from the board?
I move that we approve the items under number 6 regarding public disclosures of conflict of interest as presented by Mr. McIver.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes and Mr. Major. All those in favor?
Ms. Wheeldon, I wanted to ask real quick, so if my name is on one of them, do I participate in the vote, or do I withhold from the vote to approve, or?
I think it would be, I guess what we may do is, if we want to have the ones, I know a number of them are for staff and administrators, perhaps call those separate, have that as one vote, and then have the ones that are board members separately, so that those board members can stay. I think we have 2 or 3 board members that submitted them, so I don't want you to not have enough to approve. But I approve the staff ones and approve them, and call the board member ones.
Okay. Okay, so we need to amend the motion again, Mr.
So
Grimes.
real quick, do we need to have a conflict of interest for our conflict of interest form? I think the reality of it is so I have a conflict of interest form, right? So I'm going to agree that the conflict of interest that I provided to you, that I have to sign after this is okay. So I mean, that seems reasonable, right? I mean, it's not like we're voting to
Pay ourselves.
yeah. We kind of just did, but but we didn't double the amount. So, do we need to change the vote, the amendments?
There is, question, and I don't think we've ever had any question on them. I would just not want there to be a reason problem accepting the other ones. Because the reality is that for you all as board members, you generally disclose those things on anything that might be related on the specific vote, staying for But I don't think it's going to be a challenge, so I think I've given you a suggestion to proceed.
Okay, so Mr. McGyver says we can proceed with the existing motion in second if the team feels comfortable with that. Okay, so the motion on the table that was seconded was to approve item 6, recommendations for public disclosures, conflict of interest for staff administrators and board members. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you for all that. We'll now move into some more normal stuff than the reorganization work that we've just been doing. These are requests for approval of the minutes of the executive session on December 11th and the regular school board meeting on December 11th. Field trips and professional leaves, school fundraisers, supplemental contracts, as well as letter F is claims and payroll. We had $1.1 million in claims for January 8th, which is today, and the payroll for December 8th through December 29th, about $7.9 million, and then the pre-runs for the month of December, about $26.8 million. And then we have additional pieces that are tied to reorganization. We are asking for an appointment of Dr. Roy Good and Dr. Jennifer Hartwell as school physicians. The reason for that is Dr. Good is going to be retiring. So we'll have him finish out this school year, and then Dr. Hartwell has agreed to keep on going in that. And so the dollars, the amounts, though, in the letter that you would have received are the same for each of them in terms of their work for us when we have a meeting or they need to participate in some work for us. The appointment of Mr. Mike McIver as school attorney. We'll continue with Mike. A resolution for a final 2023 transfer from the education fund to the operations fund. That's a typical one for us this time of year from Dr. Phillips. And a memorandum of agreement for a family engagement grant. Mrs. Schaff was able to land a substantial amount of money for the corporation to engage more with our families within the community. And lastly, a resolution to participate in a class action social media litigation. This is similar to the litigation that we pursued with Jewel and Altria with the vaping situation. And so we are joining other corporations across the state and nation in a similar one with just a lot of stuff with social media. So I'm asking for your approval of those items.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts.
So is this where I ask for item A to be pulled out so I can make a, suggest a correction in the minutes from
Yes.
last time?
Yep.
So I would like item A pulled out separately so that I can talk about a correction.
Okay. Good.
And I would move that we approve number 7, letters B through J, as presented by Dr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen. Any discussion?
Yeah, I had a real quick question about I didn't know if we could get a little bit of background on what, so we've got a grant. What are we gonna, first, I don't know enough about how much, and I don't know about what it is gonna be providing.
Sure. Yep. Mrs. Schaff.
Is this on? Yeah. I believe that you saw at least the memorandum of agreement, I think is what we called it, rather than understanding. It is up to $500,000 over 5 years, so it's about $100,000 a year. Federal grant funds awarded to 5 corporations across the state. So we'll be working in a cohort with the in-source statewide Family Engagement Center grant, or Family Engagement Center. So this is a new initiative that hasn't been out there before. So what exactly are we doing with it? We're going to be learning that together. Certainly it can fund a new position, and I think our plans initially would be to really take a good audit of where we are now with our current state on how we're engaging our families, what opportunities we have to gather input, and then get our boots on the ground right away to get some new programming in place to engage those families we're currently not serving in the best way that we could, hopefully. So it's nice, it gives us a little extra time with those extra years, but it will be a development over that time, hopefully to be a model site across the state in how we can creatively and effectively meet the needs of our families and improve our student outcomes.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Appreciate Mr. Major's question on that. It leads me to be able to thank Mrs. Schaff for hard work. This is a grant that came out quickly. We know that family engagement is extremely important as that extra leg in the chair that we don't always have a lot of sphere of influence or opportunities to help with that, and this provides another way for the school to engage. So we had to turn it around quickly, and the answer that we'd received, it was back quickly. So Mrs. Schaff indicated the possibility of a family engagement coordinator, so a position that could work through that. It also provides opportunities for money for incentives for participation. So, you know, something as simple as a gift card for a meal for somebody who may choose to participate in some workshop or session or something like that we might do. So I think a variety of things, we can get innovative through it, but this does go through 2028, Megan? Yeah, through 2028. So some time to get started on it and get through it and see how we can benefit our community overall.
Good.
And I've got a question. I don't know if it might be for Dr. Phillips or Dr. Pleak, and under letter D, the number of claims, teachers subbing for teachers, and I don't know exactly how to pose this question, but might you have an idea of how many sub jobs go unfilled across the corporation on any given day?
I don't know. It can be as high, 50, you think? I'm trying to think. I didn't look at it in the month of December because usually that ticks up a little bit. So I think our most, you said unfilled, right? So unfilled probably under 20 would be an unfilled, not a typical day. That'd be more like a Friday or a Monday would tend to be more absences on those days. But there are requests for subs anywhere from the range of 50. I think our highest so far has been like low 90s for a day of needing subs. So usually the morning starts out higher. Then when our sub coordinator gets here, she's quickly getting those and getting them filled as much as possible. So the ones that are left at that time are the ones we ask teachers to cover and pay them the stipend.
And I know that's obviously not just a BCSC concern, it's a statewide, concern, obviously, a lack of subs, just like a lack of teachers. Do any buildings have permanent subs?
Well, what I can tell you, though, in answering that question, that was more of an average on a bad day. So there are days all sub positions are filled. Okay. So there are some where we're not lacking any of them. We currently employ 4 permanent subs in the corporation. And so in the morning when the sub coordinator gets here, they get their assignment every morning of where to report to. And it's usually the place that may have the most open positions is where she chooses to send them to try to make a little bit more balance throughout the day.
Thank you.
Yeah, Todd, I had noticed that as well. I had a conversation with somebody, I can't remember who it was right now. It was probably about a month ago. And they had mentioned that other school corporations use their bus drivers to support as subs, so they'll drive the bus in the morning, and then they may not have anything in between pick up and then drop off in the afternoon. So that might be, because I've seen this has been repeat as well, lots. I mean, probably, 60% of that list is teachers subbing for teachers. Right, and so anytime they're subbing for another teacher, they're out of their classroom. So there's some concerns that I've had where, how do we keep a teacher in their classroom? How do we get support? And we already hire bus drivers. Is there a way that any of them might want to utilize their time in between morning and afternoon to support?
We do currently. Dr. Bozeman would know, we do currently have a couple of them that do sub for us on occasion. Again, we have to pay attention to hours worked, and because they're completely contracted on 20 hours a week, so we have to be cautious of how many hours and days that they do sub throughout the day. But Mr. Major, one thing that you mentioned is it's pulling teachers out of their classrooms. If they are, they're giving up their prep time to do so. So they're giving up their planning time. They're not being pulled from a classroom with students to go cover another classroom for students. So just making sure that that is clear. So we're not leaving children unattended in a room or with somebody else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to go on record saying I appreciate Mr. Michael McIver, and I'm glad you're on the list and going to stay with us another year, Mike. Yep. Okay, so I have a motion for 7, B through J. It was seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Nellen.
In the minutes from last meeting, in reference to policy 9130, what it says in the minutes is, Mr. Grimes made a motion to strike letter J from the draft policy 9130, and it never says we actually passed the policy. So I would suggest that we change that to, Mr. Grimes made a motion to pass policy 9130, striking letter J. And then the rest is correct.
Just to clarify. Okay.
If you could just repeat that one more time, Mr. Nallen, so we can
Yes.
capture that.
To change it from, he made a motion to strike letter J to he made a motion to pass policy 9130, striking letter J.
Okay. Yeah, so it's checking, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nellen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
So just to be the amendment first, voting on the amendment first, just wanted to clarify that.
Is that an
was the
amendment to
question.
the minutes?
It is
Okay.
an amendment
Yeah.
to the minutes, yes. Thank you for clarifying.
welcome.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the amendment to minutes from last board meeting, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, now I need to have a motion to.
So now I would move that we,
That's right.
that we approve item number 7, item A, the minutes to the executive session and the last regular school board meeting.
As amended.
Second.
Thank you. So, motion to approve 7A as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Bleak?
I request approval of the HR recommendations as presented this evening, and in total, there were 5, 1 retirement, 2 resignations, and 2 appointments.
Thank you, Dr. Bleak.
I move that we approve the HR recommendations as presented by Dr. Pleak.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes and Mr. Majors. All those in favor of approving HR recommendations, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
And I have an additional HR recommendation that I would like to approve this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Pleak.
And I would move that we approve the additional HR recommendation as presented by Dr. Pleak.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Grimes and Mr. Nellen. All those in favor of approving the additional HR recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Board input and review. I will start with you, Mr. Bryant.
I just say congratulations to our new officers.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Appreciate that. Mr. Major?
Yeah, I just want to wish everybody, well, I wanted to say I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and that everybody was able to safely bring in the new year. Wanted to acknowledge that there's about 5 months left of school, and that I wish all the best for all the seniors with their efforts to complete senior projects and close out the requirements for graduation. And I also want to wish the best to all the athletic teams that are nearing the end of their winter seasons and ensure that y'all keep working hard to do the best in the sectionals and beyond. So teachers, you're about 5 months to summer break, so the countdown is on.
Thank you, Mr. Major.
I appreciate the input of my colleagues. I've got nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. I'm okay. Mr. Grimes?
Just looking forward to a new, exciting, productive calendar year.
Thank you.
A couple things. First, congratulations and thank you to the officers of the board. A couple meetings ago, we had a presentation on book buddies, and today was my first day as a book buddy volunteer at Schmidt, and it was a great experience, but it's also a very well-run program. I mean, they make it very easy for volunteers to, who might not be a reading expert to come in and help students with their reading. So
That's awesome.
commendations to the whole program. And then I have a plus delta. The plus, Mr. Grimes already mentioned, the change in the format for the policy review was absolutely tremendous. And Dr. Roberts, thank you for whatever part you did on the extra work to make that, but it made them much easier to figure out what's going and what's coming, and so thank you. The delta is that several meetings ago, we adopted policy 131.1 about adopting policies, and I acknowledge that it takes time to implement new processes, but part of that process is the policy says that the proposed policies would be posted publicly available on the corporation website at least 14 days prior to the first reading. This posting will include I can't read my own writing here, a solution that allows, such as Google Forms, that allows for the public to submit comments to the board virtually. We haven't done that yet, and I know it takes time to implement something like that, but I think that will help in the future with our public engagement and transparency around policy changes.
Thank you, Mr. Nell.
Thank you.
Okay.
If I could add just something real quick. The month of January is School Board Appreciation Month, and so just want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. It'd be helpful to maybe get some messages to our board members for their great work. You saw the conversation, or listened to the conversation about money. These individuals aren't making a ton of money by doing this job. They're basically volunteering their time to try to do what's best for our students. So thank you, school board members, and hopefully we get some recognition.
Thank you very much. That was sweet. Okay, our next meeting is, we are going to have an executive session next Tuesday, so that will not be open to the public. Those are typically matters of personnel, which is why those are not open to the public. So that will be next Tuesday for the board, 5:30, and then our next regular school board meeting is on January 22nd at 6:30 p.m. right here.
Oh, wrong
Very
connection.
good. Everyone have a good night. With that, I will end today's meeting.